memorial celebration. It's great to see everyone here for this uniquely Cornwall event, and we're here to do several things at once. First and foremost is to thank the veterans on this plaque and in the audience for their service to their country. So let's all take a minute to think about that. This is in some ways a particularly Cornwall event in that it shows the power of one young man's idea, shows the strength of patriotism, and it shows some of the people that we have in town and how they can get things done when they work together. So to start, I would like to have the Reverend Betsy Morrow give an invocation.
Let us gather in a spirit of reverence and gratitude. We come together today in a solemn act of remembering. And in our remembering, we honor those whose courage and commitment shaped history, not only for our nation, but for our hometown. There are rare times when people are called to arms to advance nobler causes and human rights, when social complexities, oppressions, and self-interests leave no other recourse. And so we recall and commend those Cornwallians who served in the Civil War of the United States, furthering freedoms, rights, and dignities for all people. We give thanks for their sacrifices and are grateful for the inspiration their dedication and noble service gives across generations. We are also grateful to Spencer Markow for living into this inspiration, working to ensure our Civil War veterans are not forgotten and creating this marker of honor. By his effort and the encouragement he received, the legacy of these veterans is lifted up, that we might not take for granted the rights they fought for and the courage of their service. We give thanks for these veterans and all veterans, and may we continue to bear witness to that courage and the sacrifices we commemorate, not only in this gathering, but in all of the efforts made that advance human equality, dignity, safety, and peace. And may our witness be the living hope of generations to come. Amen.
Thank you, Betsy. And one thing I think is particularly telling is Betsy, as in several of the people here, are actually related to some of the names on the plaque, and that's one of the things that make Cornwall unique, is the longevity of some of our families here, their connection to this place, and again, their continued service to this place. I'd just like to say that again, thanks to Spencer. He came with his parents into the office and said, I have an 8th grade project. I'm not sure we can do this. And he had this idea of commemorating the soldiers. And as most people know, there are monuments to later wars and the veterans from Cornwall, down in Cornwall Village. But there was nothing to commemorate these brave people in their service. And again, there's 180 or so names on this plaque. If you think of 180 people leaving this town, it's about the same size as it is now. 20 of them didn't come back. It's a huge sacrifice that was made by these people. The most famous, of course, is General Sedgwick, who has his monument and had a remarkable history. He was in charge of the defense of our nation's capital when it was under attack, and things were in the balance in the Civil War, whether our nation would continue. He was in charge of the defense. He marched his troops to Gettysburg to reinforce the Union Army there, and was ultimately killed in the nation's service. He was so beloved by people on both sides of that conflict that I believe he's the only one with a statue at West Point that served in the Civil War, even though there were many generals on both sides that served that had gone to West Point. He's the only one with a statue. He's on a horse, which I believe is named Cornwall, looking north up the Hudson River. So again, that shows the esteem that he had, and apparently when that monument was dedicated and when he had his service here, there was over several thousand people came to both the dedication and also to his service. President Lincoln sent flowers to cover his casket. It was a major loss for the country when he died. And when we grew up here as kids, he was a Civil War story. He was an inspiration of service. But again, it wasn't until recently that, and there are other people that were highlighted, their service was highlighted. The Historic Society has put out a book about all the people that served from Cornwall in the Union Army, and there were certainly many stories of bravery, sacrifice, gallantry in that book. But it wasn't until today that we have a monument to everyone that served also. And again, there was about 20 people on this monument were not able to return to Cornwall. Again, thanks to Spencer's family, his Uncle Jim, whose fate would have it, knows how to work metal and came up with the plaque. Thanks again to John Laporta. Only in Cornwall do we have this type of talent where we have masons that know every rock in town, and he did a diligent search to find a unique piece of Cornwall granite that would be appropriate for this plaque, and he found it. And again, this is all volunteer work that made this happen. And again, a remarkable monument. And so I would like now to have Spencer say a few words.
Good afternoon. My name is Spencer Markow. I am a freshman at Houstonic Valley Regional High School. In 8th grade, I did an explorations project. I came up with a list of ideas and chose this Civil War project because I have always enjoyed learning about it, and my relative, Major General John Sedgwick, was in the war. We have General Sedgwick's monument, but there was no monument or recognition for the other veterans of the Civil War. I thought it would be important to make a plaque of our Cornwall Civil War soldiers. This list includes men who lived in Cornwall, who enlisted in Cornwall, and who were buried in Cornwall. As I did the research to find the list of men through the Connecticut State Library, National Park Service, and Cornwall Historical Society, I came to realize that there was a lot more to this than just a list of names. Although most of my research was fact-checking the accuracy of names, the research also revealed details about the lives of these soldiers. One such story was about two best friends who are on this plaque. 25-year-old Corporal George W. Page from Cornwall and 19-year-old Corporal Charles Reed from Salisbury were said to have crawled quite a distance from where they were hit and died together clasped in each other's arms. I couldn't help but think that these two friends were only a few years older than me, and that each name on this plaque has a life and a sacrifice to tell. Both memorials and holidays remind us how important it is to always remember. I would like to thank my teacher, Mr. Vincent, Mr. Ridgway for supporting this project and dedication, Mr. John Laporta for helping to find the stone, preparing and attaching this plaque, Mr. and Mrs. Ed Laporta for allowing me to use this stone from their yard and turn it into this monument, Mr. Josh Tyson for helping to move the stone, my uncle, Jim Hurlbert, for helping me engrave these 179 soldiers onto the brass plaque, and I want to thank everyone else who helped me along the way.
And I think on behalf of our community, Spencer, we thank you. And again, it gives us such hope in these interesting times to have a young person with such clarity of vision to know what needs to be done and to get it done. So anyway, thank you very much. I would also like to thank our Board of Selectmen for supporting the project. Maria Horn, our state representative, is here, representing the state of Connecticut. And I'd also like to thank Sam Waterston for agreeing to speak today. When our family was visiting Gettysburg, we took the audio tour around the battlefield, as I would encourage other people to do, and who was the narrator. I said, that sounds like Sam Waterston. And the more I studied about the Civil War, the more I came across Sam Waterston bringing this important conflict to life with great eloquence. And I think also one thing that struck me is, as we were getting ready for this, was the inscription on General Sedgwick's monument said, "He died for the Union." And again, at this time where our country has divisions, these people all served for a concept that was greater than themselves, that we're the United States of America. And again, so I would like to thank Sam for volunteering to say a few words to us today.
Never invite me to speak anywhere if you don't want me to talk about climate. Gordon thought it might be good. Is this working? To read something from Lincoln on this occasion of dedicating a memorial to the 179 veterans of the Civil War from Cornwall, and I will. But what to read? According to the Cornwall Chronicle, Spencer Markow, to whom the whole town is indebted for coming up with the idea long overdue for this monument and for seeing it through to completion with a little help from his friends, of course. This same Spencer Markow told the Chronicle his goal was to connect Cornwall's past to the present. In the context of today, Veterans Day, that's an idea that can't be improved upon. Today's original name was Armistice Day, and it was exactly 100 years ago today that the armistice ending World War I went into effect, making for a very different present for us all. I hope you'll hear the short Lincoln quotation I'm going to read as also connecting the past to the present. What that past has to say to us is pretty darn simple, but it speaks loudly to today. The question the 179 are asking of us is, will we react as they did when the emergency of our time calls on us? It's alarming because, as Gordon was just saying, behind the real and plenty scary political uncertainty of today, the easy othering of neighbors and fellow citizens, the danger in our too easy setting off of brother against brother that makes the Civil War such a timely lesson, behind all that lies the greater uncertainty of the climate emergency. It's as big an emergency as any we've ever faced. As big as the emergency these 179 Cornwallians went off to face. As big as the Great Depression, as big as World War I, as big as World War II. There's always another emergency, though, isn't there? We're so used to and so tired of hearing that this day, this vote, this election is an emergency. But this, the climate emergency, is the big one. Will we rise to the occasion? The challenge is huge, but just as it was for the 179, it's not the size of the challenge that matters. It's what we do or don't do about it. It's the outcome that matters, and just as in the past, the outcome, everything, depends on how we react. Will we act now to save the earth as the 179 acted then to end slavery and save the Union? In the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln said the soldiers who gave their lives at Gettysburg ought to inspire us so that these honored dead, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That inspiration is still there for the taking today. But I want to read you a different quote, one from a written address that Lincoln sent to Congress on December 2nd, 1892, in a time as dark and full of uncertainties to those living in it as ours is to us. This Lincoln quote isn't about the honored dead. but it's about all of us. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We will be remembered in spite of ourselves. No personal significance or insignificance can spare one or another of us. The fiery trial through which we pass will let us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. We say we are for the Union. The world will not forget that we say this. We know how to save the Union. The world knows we do know how to save it. We, even we here, hold the power and bear the responsibility. Cornwall is a wonderful town, and this event is a demonstration of what a wonderful town it is. And if more proof were needed, there's Spencer Markow himself. A town can't be all bad if it produces young people like him who know what it means to answer a call to action. Cornwall in the Civil War did not say to itself, we're just a small town, there's only 179 of us who can go, what difference will it make? They went. So let's us go. I was about to say, let's all go down to D.C. and get ourselves arrested, which wouldn't be a bad idea. But let's all do something to get our leaders off the dime. Let's steal a page from these 179 and from Spencer Markow. Let's do something more. You'll see, it feels good. It frees you up to face the facts. It will matter. It will make a huge emergency into something we can do something about. And it'll cut the monster down to size. This is our emergency. This is our time. It's our turn. We cannot escape history. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. And again, showing the depth of this small place. Not only do we have masons and craftsmen and speakers and ministers, but we also have a new part-time resident of Cornwall who is a Civil War reenactor and does Civil War education. And he, several years ago, when we had the anniversary of General Sedgwick's death, he and his comrades came up and camped out on the village green, built a fire from flint, authentically, and he actually bought a piece of property recently on Route 128. He's hunted in Cornwall for a long time, and this is his second home. So when this idea started happening, I said, well, who would be better to give another perspective on the day than somebody that's actually lived the history. And so through that, I met Warren Stevens of the 14th Connecticut Regiment, and he is here today to give some thoughts, because again, it's so easy to get wrapped up in today's issues, today's drama, but for once we can take some time to go back in time, imagine what it was like for these people that we're honoring today. I said you can unplug your cell phone, but as people in Cornwall Hollow know, that's you don't have to unplug your cell phone because there's no coverage. Sorry about that, Board of Selectmen should do something. So, it's my pleasure to introduce to you all Warren Stevens.
What is this thing? Good afternoon. My name is Warren Stevens. I live in Southington. I've camped and fished and hunted in Cornwall for the last 51 years. It's about time I bought property up here. But I'm going to take you back now and give you a soldier's perspective. You're reading the history books about the great leaders and battles and all of that stuff. There's guys like my friends and myself that bled and died for this country. The Connecticut census in 1860 revealed there's approximately 460,000 people in the state, which was a lot. Now it's 3.5 million. Of the 460,000, about 119,000 were men of fighting age, between 16 and 60. Many younger boys lied, many older men lied to serve because they wanted to. Of the 119,000 men from Connecticut that were eligible, 55,000 went out to war. 5,500 never returned. That's a pretty sad figure. The most highest cause of death was not bullets on the battlefield, it was disease. And strangely enough, it was the country boys up from Litchfield County and farm areas that suffered the most. Men from the inner city were used to disease and sickness. They built up a resistance to it. You put vast armies together, men got sick. It was the guys from the country that didn't have the resistance. Spring of 1862, my friends and I heard of a regiment forming, 14th Connecticut. We all went down and joined. The regiment was organized into 10 companies of 100 men each, with staff, surgeon, clergy, a few others. We left Hartford, Connecticut, August 1862. There were 1,015 of us. Our first battle was Antietam. We suffered almost 40% casualties. Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg. The following July, when we marched on to the Gettysburg battlefield, 11 months after we formed, out of the 1,015 of us, there were 160 plus men fit for duty. That's the reality of war. And we fought gallantly on July 2nd. We were on the wall when Pickett's charge came. We repulsed it. One of our men, Sergeant Hinks, who's buried in Bridgeport, won the Congressional Medal of Honor for bravery. When the sun set on July 3rd, there was 100 of us left alive. The entire regiment was the size of a company. We got replacements, we built back up, we continued on through the war. We were called the Fighting 14th. That was our nickname. We fought in every major battle and engagement of the Civil War. And we were away from home nearly 3 years. When I left home, my daughter was 10 years old. We left home, my daughter was 10 years old. Before I left Camp Foote in Hartford, I had a tintype taken of her and myself. I didn't know if I'd see her again. She was 10 years old when I left. I wouldn't see her again until she was 13 years old. I carried that with me for 3 years in my knapsack. On a national level, 1.5 million men from the North served. The figures were recently updated. Over 700,000 died. The Confederates, who we really don't give a damn about, had about 600,000 men served. Close to 491,000 died. If you add that up, that's over 1 million men. If that was applied as a percentage to today's population, it'd be between 11 and 12 million dead men. That's the reality of the Civil War. Technology developed during the Civil War. Of course, firearms, Winchester rifle, the Gatling gun. A hot air balloon was used for observance. And the Confederates perfected the first submarine, the Hunley, which sank, of all things, the USS Housatonic. Other things advanced as well. Medicine, of course, had to. We were overwhelmed in the beginning with casualties. Supply, for keeping 1.5 million men in the field fed, was something canned goods advanced. In fact, the first practical can opener was developed by Ezra Warner in Waterbury, Connecticut. We have one later if anybody'd like to see it. A coffee mill was developed. Soldiers consumed more coffee than any other food substance. One of the first practical coffee mills, or coffee grinder, was produced in Meriden by J&E Parker. Later they formed a shotgun company, left it to their sons. It became the famous Parker Brothers Shotgun Company. A single Parker Brothers shotgun now can sell for well over 6 figures. Some good things came out of the Civil War. Unfortunately, war drives technology, but medicine developed, veterans benefits developed. 1 in 4 men were killed. 1 in 13 men returned home missing a limb. They couldn't go back to work. Factories, farms, veteran benefits developed, prosthetics developed. 6 generals and 1 higher ranking officer, 7 men in all, later went on to be presidents of the United States. But for us, it was a different story. We toiled on and on and on until the war was over. One of the most treasured things, I kept a journal too, by the way. One of the most treasured things a soldier could get was a letter from home. This one is from my wife. It's personal, but I'll share it with you. Please bear with me. And I have a good woman. She spent 2 cents to have this delivered to me in 1863, and I marveled at the fact it went from Connecticut to Pennsylvania in under 3 weeks. I have no idea what the future holds for us. It's rather tattered. I've read it 100 times by campfire, candlelight, stated 15 June, 1863. My dearest husband, Warren, I hope this letter finds you safe. We look forward to having you home with us very soon. The Reverend calls all of you in his prayers during our Sunday service. The crops are doing well this season. Tomatoes and squash due any time now. I expect we should sell quite a few. She's trying to keep money up. We were paid $13 a month to fight for this country. It's 43 cents a day, and since a soldier was on duty 24 hours a day, it was 1.8 cents an hour I risked my life for. The weather has been hot, with rain or thunderstorm almost daily. The breeze in the evening is welcome change in the daytime heat. I have been baking loaves of bread later each evening and have been making extra to send to our neighbors, the Tanners, since Mrs. Tanner delivered her baby girl just 3 days ago. They named her Allison Abigail. We think of you each evening at supper, at prayer time, and bedtime. The light grows dim, my ink grows pale. My love for you will never fail. Your beloved wife, Rebecca. Thank you for having us here.
And thank you very much, Warren, for bringing this to life. And now the 14th Connecticut will do a commemorative volley in honor of Cornwall veterans. And again, thank you all for coming. And there's refreshments afterwards. Everyone's encouraged to stay and linger and socialize. Thanks to our VFW for coming. And again, thank you all for attending this very nice occasion.
Shoulder, arm, right, face. Forward.
by 9 times. Move. Handle. Target. Air. Target. Charge. Target. Draw. Rammer. Ram. Target. Turn. Rammer. Prime. Shoulder, arm. Arm by squad, ready. Aim. Punch. Load. Squad, ready. Aim. Punch. Load. Ready. Fire by left oblique. Aim. Fire. There. Arm. Up, out. Face. Preset. Arms. Shoulder. Arms. Order. Arms. Parade. Rest. Shoulder. Arms. Forward. March. Halt. Front. Shoulder, arms. Order, arms. Parade, rest. Thank you. You're welcome.
It's really fun. Oh yeah. Cult movie for our family. Very good.
Good, how you doing?
Very old friend of ours,
Yeah, Florence. Sometimes I can call Phyllis, or Francis. Do you ever get called Florence? Yeah, no, I have a friend who's named Francis, and I mean, I answer to the name Francis. Really? Oh, I asked her, I think. Anyway, well, you know my name.
I know your name.
Yeah.
I know who you are.
I noticed that 5 of them are from the same family. Smith, Vale, or Boyle, or anyway, Vale, yeah. Hey, Wilson.
Mr. Brian, how you doing? How are you?
Yeah, actually, I have some. I picked a whole bunch of arugula, so I'm going to make them.